This video was brought to you by Brilliant. Since the election last year, Labour seem to have done, well, not very much. And for all of their talk of renewal, little seems to have tangibly changed in Britain. The Labour Party certainly haven't moved fast, or boldly, as many would have expected them to do upon their success at the last election. Perhaps part of this is that growth remains sluggish, and Rachel Reeves is therefore reluctant to approve money for costly new projects. Or perhaps it's a more general reluctance to act at all, triggered by a host of negative headlines about the decision to means test the winter fuel allowance, hand the Chagos Islands back to Mauritius, and the decision to impose inheritance tax on farmers. All of this has led polling to demonstrate that a majority of Britons think that the current Labour government feels like more of the same when compared to the previous Conservative government. Now, normally, under a two-party system, it would be the official opposition party that would benefit from this. However, polling suggests that this just isn't the case. The Conservatives are still languishing in the polls, with the upstart Tory challenger party, Reform UK, not only making but maintaining a polling surge. So with this in mind, in this video we're going to take a look at Reform's current polling. They're doing very well, and what they need to do in order to maintain it. Hey, do you kind of hate us? Well, watch us respond to your criticisms, from bias to advertising or pronunciations, in our dedicated criticism response video. It's linked in the description. Now, it should come as no surprise that Reform is polling particularly well at the moment. Every single major pollster in the UK now has a poll that puts Reform UK ahead of both the Tories and Labour. Techne and More in Common gave them a 1-point lead on Labour. YouGov gave them a 2-point lead, and Find Out Now gave them a 4-point lead, with all of these polls conducted within just the last 2 weeks. Ben Walker, writing for the new Statesman, demonstrated just how significant this is. UKIP didn't achieve a polling lead at all, and even the Brexit Party maintained one for only a few weeks in 2019, and even then it was only because Brexit was a particularly salient policy issue. The fact that Reform is maintaining a lead, though, demonstrates that Reform's polling bounce is not simply a one-off, and if this continues, the road to power looks ever more likely. This is driven home by analysis from Electoral calculus from the end of January, which showed that if there was an election tomorrow, they'd expect Reform UK to garner 151 seats, pushing them all the way up to third place, and only 5 seats behind the Tories, who are expected to win 156. As a result, they deny Labour a majority, forcing Starmer to go cap in hand to the Lib Dems and SNP to form a government. Now, obviously, we're not suggesting that this is likely to happen. In fact, a lot of polling that suggests that Reform are in the lead put this within the margin of error. Rather, this is merely a deliberately shocking example of what could happen if everything continues to go well for Reform, and why Labour and the Tories ought to be scared. And to be fair to them, there definitely is evidence that this is exactly how the two main parties are acting. Badenoch has begun to tacitly praise Farage, presumably to try and demonstrate that her politics aren't too different from his, in an attempt to win Reform voters back. Starmer has taken a different approach, with him going on the offensive, suggesting that Farage is fawning over Putin, and claiming that he wants to charge people to use the NHS, with him remarking that Farage is not the answer for working people in Britain. The thing is, though, that Reform's success isn't actually guaranteed. As bright as their future looks, the next election is likely 4 and a bit years away. And as we see it, there are 3 big hurdles that they need to overcome if they are to remain relevant. Now, when we say hurdles, we're referring to 3 different types of elections that are set to take place prior to the general election. And each of these elections are important because they give Reform the opportunity to demonstrate that the current polling is accurate and that they are indeed on track to become one of the 3 largest parties in 2029. The first type of election is the council elections that are set to take place this May. In total, 24 of the 317 councils in the UK are going up for election. Of these, 16 are Tory run, 1 is Labour run, and 7 have no single party in control. Current polling suggests that Reform could take majority control from 6 Tory-run councils, with them potentially forming a coalition with the Tories. And they may have even been able to take minority control of Thurrock Council had it not been delayed. Even taking control of a number of council seats up for election would be a huge step for Reform. First, it will give them a huge amount of media coverage and reinforce their current polling. Second, it will give them a local presence, ingraining them in local communities and making it easier in the future to campaign both locally in general elections and select local experienced candidates for Parliament. The second type of elections, though, are by-elections. As things stand, no by-elections are currently set to take place. However, it's highly likely that there will be one in the next few months, or failing that, years. Given that Labour has a majority in Parliament, it's likely that any such by-election will take place in an area that previously had a Labour MP. In fact, if a recall petition is successful, this could even take place in Mike Ainsbury's Runcorn and Helsby constituency. Regardless, a by-election would test Reform's ability to act as the protest party, not just to the Conservatives, but also to Labour too. As Professor Richard Rose puts it, it would test Reform's pincer strategy. Additionally, if they were able to win it, it would show that the polling holds specifically in elections to Parliament, and would really spook both Starmer and Badenoch in a way that success in local elections just wouldn't. The third type of election are national Parliament elections, specifically in Wales and Scotland. Doing well in either of these would give Reform a presence in the legislature of a country, and winning would give them actual experience of governance. As things stand, Reform isn't polling that well in Scotland, and therefore we're not going to focus on that election. In Wales, however, Reform really does have the potential to do very well indeed. The Welsh Parliament elections are set to take place in 2026, and, as in Westminster, Reform's polling is ticking up, with some polls already putting them ahead of Plaid Cymru and the Tories. It makes sense then that Reform has made it their mission to come first in this election, and if they do so, it would be a significant step towards power in Westminster. Now, the thing is, often in politics, we need to understand a wide variety of topics to truly grasp what's going on. And fortunately, our sponsor this week, Brilliant, can help us do just that, with thousands of lessons in maths, science, programming, and AI. And not only that, their interactive lessons teach you by doing, instead of just asking you to mindlessly memorize stuff. In turn, this helps to build your critical thinking skills and become a better thinker. For instance, Brilliant's newly updated maths courses help you to establish a strong foundation in algebra. It then helps you to build on this, teaching you how to conquer calculus, all while maintaining an emphasis on problem solving and reasoning. The thing I like most about this, though, is that their mathematical courses help you to develop your mathematical intuition and fluency, skills that you can use in the real world. As we've told you before, data skills are absolutely necessary for navigating the modern world, and Brilliant is the best way to get them. To try everything that Brilliant has to offer for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/TLDR, or click the link in the description. And by doing so, you'll get 20% off an annual premium subscription.